Ryman Snyder, that's that correctly?
Yeah, Roger Snyder, that's what.
Ryman Snyder is the Republican candidate, and Natale, Lino, Stracuzzi is the Statehood Green Party candidate.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, I'm sorry. Can't go on here. Let's go on to the questions for the U.S. delegate. In sort of as an addendum to the comments that Paul Strauss just made, the incumbent who preceded the current incumbent said that there were the reasons why D.C. does not have statehood are the three twos: too liberal, too democratic, and too black. The black issue is becoming to change, but in any case, that is an addendum to what he said. Now we have candidates who are seeking the position of delegate to the U.S. Congress, and we will ask them to answer in order. Of course, we can always just answer this question, do you support statehood, by a show of hands. Do you support statehood? Okay. Now, what have you done to help achieve it, Congresswoman Norton?
First, let me thank Statehood and the coalition of which it is a part for agreeing to work with me during Emancipation Month, where I'm going to go to the floor and stand up in the coalition. I'm going to take the posters I use for Statehood and distribute them around the city. We're an active coalition together, and I appreciate the work we've done together ever since I've been in Congress. I've spent my entire service in the Congress trying to get a statehood. Now, I can report that this year we've gotten further than we've ever gotten except for my second term. This year, the majority leader, my good friend Harry Reid, made a full-throated endorsement of my statehood bill, and he did so at a ceremony that was also historic because we got the first statue ever. Normally these statues go for states. That's why there was resistance. For 15 years I got that statue through, and we're the only jurisdiction, not yet a statute, to have a statue. It's a statue of Frederick Douglass, voted by the people of the District of Columbia. But the majority leader virtually never endorses a bill, and he never co-sponsors a bill, and not only did he come out for statehood, he is co-sponsoring our statehood bill. I also have on the bill a majority of the leaders of the Senate. There are 4 of them who are leaders of the Senate, including Dick Durbin, the assistant majority leader, including Tom Copper, who is the man with jurisdiction over the District of Columbia. That's the kind of progress towards a statehood that you can feel and see, and that we have made in this 1 year alone.
Would you feel put upon, since we didn't ask for opening statements, would you feel put upon if we consider that your opening statement?
Go right ahead. No, that's how I would have opened. I would have opened with what I had achieved this year, so that's fair.
So now let's hear from Nelson Ryman-Snyder, Republican running for U.S. delegate.
Yes, we've heard a lot about how do we get the word out to the people in the states, the national media, the international media, that we are taxed without our consent. Well, to do that, we should be petitioning Congress to be exempt from federal income tax like Puerto Rico and the territories until we get voting members of Congress of statehood. Eleanor, Holmes, Norton had a bill in twice to do that. Got 120 Democratic co-sponsors, including the entire Democratic leadership. Now the Republicans have put in the bill to do that. it's time to get a bipartisan movement going to be exempt from federal income tax. And when that word gets out that that's what we're united in petitioning for, out there in the states, you talk taxes, it gets people's attention. Just saying, we're not represented in Congress does not seem to be resonating. I've been working on this for 50 years, and believe me, it's not resonating. I think we have to get united behind no vote, no tax. And I have your refund checks available tonight. Please get one before you go. And your bumpers.
Natale, Lino, Stracuzzi. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Natale?
Yes.
Go ahead, please. You're what you say.
First of all, we have to look at what's going on right now in Russia and with Ukraine. This is an international talking point to preach democracy around the world. Because again, the U.S. is sitting there standing up for them, but they're not standing up for the residents of the District of Columbia. And when you look at D.C., we voted on it as a referendum. And like anybody else, they were inducted into our union on equal footing, but not the District of Columbia. And that's what we need to make it bigger than life, because this is one of the biggest civil rights issues we have. We have to stop this endless rule of Jim Crow over the District of Columbia, and also to end this type of treason that's happening to our country and the residents of the city. It is us and not them, because again, we have just as many rights as the states do, because we voted on it and they denied us. So let's fight for statehood and keep it going, because again, right now is the time. What's going on around the world gives us that international talking point. So let's stand up for D.C. and let's push this issue a little stronger and harder. Thank you. Vote for statehood.
On that point, and on the point of the 3 twos, the 2 liberal, 2 democratic, and 2 black, will ask what effect does the changing demographic in the District of Columbia, the influx of new residents with little or no knowledge of DC's civil rights history, what effect will that have on the movement for statehood? Eleanor Holmes, going.
Well, I tell you, the Tea Party Republicans don't care what color you are. They're against statehood for the District of Columbia, so I wouldn't want to fool you to say that if we all turn white tonight, we could get statehood. But I do want to say something about my having sponsored this bill to get no taxes. I did so twice as a stunt. Let me tell you why I did it. Ever since I've been in the Congress, whatever progress I made for this city, I made in the minority. I've been in the majority very few years. Most of my more than 20 years in the Congress have been spent while I'm in the minority. So the Republicans were in the majority. Since they're for not paying taxes, I said, okay, I'll put in a bill not for paying taxes. I knew this bill would not go anywhere, but I wanted to just throw it in their faces. But let me tell you why I never would have pushed that bill. We're a whole lot better off than what they would make us if we agreed to pay no taxes. Name me a state that pays no taxes, friends. If you want to not pay any taxes, you will be a territory. If you are a territory, you lose your per capita funds. Unlike the territories, we get the same per capita as every single state. I work with my five territories all the time just to get them more money because they don't get what we don't want to become a territory.
Nelson, Ryan.
Yes, well, to look at who supports no vote, no tax. The Reverend Jesse Jackson, Sr., when he ran for shadow senator, that was his platform. And he was supported at the time by Mayor Barry. 2 months after that, he announced his campaign. Patrick Buchanan wrote an op-ed piece supporting it. The Washington Times editorialized supporting it. The Northwest Current editorialized supporting it. The Wade Henderson of the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights testified in favor of Mrs. Norton's bill. The Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights supported it. The Cato Institute has supported it, the Heritage Foundation. We have the support across the board, illogical. And that's what we should get behind. That will get the attention of the country. Taxes gets people's ears up, gets their attention. And that's what we should be doing.
Natale, Stracuzzi.
Well, myself, I think that this is something that will not work for the residents, because what it does is going to hurt the working poor, because again, we collect refunds through those taxes that we pay in the federal government, and this would take away from families getting that money that they need to go out and buy things when they get their refunds, and that boosts our economy in the District of Columbia and surrounding areas, and I know, because I'm an independent sales rep. Tax season brings in more money in my pocket. So by doing away with the taxes is not a logical, feasible thing, because again, it does not work for us, because it's just going to hurt the working poor, and the people that live in this country will lose our child credit, and we'll lose a lot of other issues there. The District of Columbia needs to work on becoming our 51st state as we planned on in the beginning. Because again, without us, the federal government has nothing. They need our police support, because whenever there's an event, who do they come to? They need our firemen and EMTs, because again, they cannot handle these types of scenarios on their own. We are needed more than they need us, because again, they need us more than we need them. And remember, a vote for Stracuzzi is a vote for statehood.
Nelson Ryan Snyder, how would you rank the movement for statehood among the district's priorities?
Well, I would say it's very low, because the council passed a law, 10222 in 1974, that said the official policy of the District of Columbia is to petition Congress that we be exempt from federal income taxation until we're represented in both houses of Congress. That's the official policy of the city. Do you hear any of our elected officials advocating that, petitioning Congress? No, that's the official policy. Look it up, DC Act 10222. So no, there is nothing, that's the way to go for statehood. Get the word out there. Enforce DC Act 10222. Our elected officials are not doing it. Tell them about it.
Natale Stracuzzi, how would you rank the movement for statehood among the district's priorities?
I feel that the District of Columbia doesn't make it the biggest priority as it should be. As the mayor says, one city, this needs to be one fight. Now, I created a flag with 51 stars, which Clinton Yates said that this was the most original idea that he's seen for statehood in a long time. I'd like to honor one of this morning, because it is something that I feel she does deserve based on that. But again, we have to start thinking outside the box. Because again, if we keep going the same way, we're not going to get anywhere. We're talking about over 2.5 centuries of second-class citizens that are residents of the District of Columbia. This is a crime wave like no other, and we need to push it in that manner to make people understand that it has to change. Because again, we are the District of Columbia, and under my leadership, I will push to make us our 51st state.
All right.
Eleanor, Holmes, Norton, how would you rank the movement for statehood among the district's priorities?
You know, the word movement is a very important word here. I've just come from Mississippi, where I spent when I was in SNCC, where I spent a great deal of time, and from Selma this past weekend. Movement, yeah, we wouldn't say that the Mississippi movement is still going. In D.C., we've had to keep a movement going for 212 years. It's very difficult. Yes, I think the mayor and the city council members, people all endorse and look for openings for statehood. But there's no free lunch in this. It is something that has to be pushed every week. There has to be a way to keep it going. When Stand Up and the coalition met with me, and we came upon some ways to keep it going rather than have it come up, that's what we need to do, and I'm going to continue to work with them after we do Emancipation Week to arouse the city. Look, they got $3 billion of your money. They have been in charge almost the entire time I've been in Congress. The Republicans, who are for no taxes for anybody, if they meant taxation to be a serious issue, we would have statehood now. They want your taxes, and they would die before they gave you statehood. The only way to get statehood is the way we got things when we were in Mississippi and Alabama. Nothing will be given to you. There's no easy way out. This is a struggle. It's a day-to-day struggle. That's what we're gonna have to make it until the District of Columbia becomes the 51st state of the United States of America.
Representative of the candidates for senator, would you support retrocession or allowing DC residents to vote for senators and a representative in Maryland as they step toward formal statehood? Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Absolutely not. You're not going to append us to another state. By the way, against their will. Whoever asked Maryland? You know, here we're trying to get democracy for the District of Columbia. The Republicans come up with this notion, we'll just give them to Maryland. Did anybody ask Maryland? Did anybody ask us? I've never had a DC resident come up and say to me, Eleanor, why in the world aren't you trying to make us a part of the state of Maryland? I'm trying to make us a part of the state of the District of Columbia called Columbia.
First of all, it would take a constitutional amendment to do that. Attorney General Robert Kennedy in 1963 was asked about this issue, and he said it cannot be done legislatively. What was done with Virginia was unconstitutional. It would take a constitutional amendment to reduce the size of the District of Columbia. So it would also affect statehood. He was also saying you can't give the district statehood by simple legislation. It would take a combination of a constitutional amendment to reduce the size and create an enclave and then grant the rest of the territory a state. It's an 8-page, very well researched and written legal opinion.
Councilor Snyder, you are a Republican. In general, Republicans on Capitol Hill appear to be resistant to the concept of statehood or even voting rights or any privileges to the citizens of the District of Columbia. How would you change that construct, or how would you go about addressing that?
Well, the local District of Columbia Republican Party has been up on the Hill doing that. We turned senators around on this issue, numerous senators. We're not giving any recognition for the work we do on Capitol Hill. The D.C. Republican Party has been up there for years. It's been in our platform, and we've been working on this.
What's been in the platform, Nelson? What's been in the platform?
Pardon?
What has been in the platform of the Republican Party?
Well, it's not. No, it's not. That's why we go to the Hill to try and convince them that it's an issue that they should support. That's why we're there. It's not in the Democratic platform either. And I'll note.
And I've never claimed it was, but you just said that it was in the Republican platform.
The D.C. Republican Party platform. We have a very progressive platform.
Has statehood in it?
And yes, it has. It has it in the platform.
Now, on this subject of
No, it's not statehood. It says statehood rights. 2 senators and representation in Congress, the House, as though we were a state. That's our platform. Now, if statehood would come up, I would be up there working. Our party would be up there working for it.
Eleanor Holmes Norton, on this subject of Republicans, on the subject of working with friends, I thought about you when I saw Darrell Issa, who you've often referred to as a friend of the District of Columbia, really in a very rude manner cut off the microphone for ranking member Elijah Cummings during a hearing on the IRS. And I thought, boy, what must Congresswoman Norton be thinking when her friend treats our friend from Maryland so rudely in this hearing? What would you do? How would you approach Republicans to win their support for statehood?
Well, first let me say, and I was right out there after that outrageous rudeness to our ranking member where he shut her down wouldn't let him have the time granted to every ranking member after he's made a statement, right out there with him, protesting it, was on television protesting it, and yet, Darrell Issa has worked with me, and I am learning to work with Republicans on DC matters and work against them on national matters, and they expect that. On DC matters, he supported budget autonomy for the District of Columbia. He supports my bills when they go through. It's as if he is schizophrenic on the issue. I accept that. So long as you do right to the District of Columbia and you understand that I'm going to be fighting you every step of the way for the Affordable Health Care Act, for education, to get us out of all of these wars. So long as you are grown up enough to know that that's how grown-up members of Congress operate, I will indeed cooperate with any Republican who wants to give statehood to the District of Columbia, and I go right out and talk about it in front of his face if he is not in fact for us on all other matters. That is the way the Congress works, and I've been able to do that from Newt Gingrich on forward.
Natale, Stracuzzi, you would have to bridge the gap between Democrats and Republicans. How would you work on Capitol Hill to increase support for statehood for the District of Columbia?
First of all, I'd like to say we have the most powerful seat on the Hill. Why? Because we don't have a vote. And if you don't have a vote, you're not needed. And what I pledge to do with my staff is to read and dissect those bills and expose which congressmen and senators get the earmarks, which they don't call earmarks anymore because they just give them to a committee in the state and then the Army Corps engineer disperses the fund. To reopen the government, we gave the Republican senator from Kentucky $3 billion to build a water treatment plant on a dam on the Ohio River. What does a taxpayer get from something like that? I'll tell you, bend over. Because the minute that plant's operational, they're going to start billing those people in those territories from that area. So I feel if we're going to put out this kind of money, then we can dispose this at the election time. Because again, this does nothing for the taxpayer. Because again, we should be able to pay higher dividends with those type of investments for Social Security recipients. 100% of our health care. We man the fact that we work till 70 and on top of it. Maybe somebody with a 3.7 that has a 4.0 grade point average can get a free ride on the taxpayer at Statehood University. So that that young mind may create that new alternative energy, develop that cure, or make that change in this country. We need to make this country #1 again.
Our State of the Senate, our delegate candidates, Eleanor Holmes Norton, Nelson Rhymes-Snyder, and Natale Stracuzzi. Thank you very much. Passionate group and a passionate audience, and the audience has been growing. Our mayoral